still under a paling sky. One ribbon caught on a low reed keeps what the morning held. A boat half tied to the wooden post leans where your hands had been. Even the tired water turns slow through the bending grass. Stay in the breath I'm holding low, deeper than I can show. Stay slow in the air I keep, where only soft light flows. A bird settles near the broken oar, then leaves the silence wide. One shadow stretches across the planks, close to the cooling tide. Nothing is asking how, nothing is letting go. Only the patient stream turns where you used to stand. Maybe the moving water knew longer than I had thought. Stay in the breath I'm holding low, deeper than I can show. Stay slow in the air I keep, where only late light flows. Slow hands at the riverside. Pines along the slope hold still under graying noon. Thin smoke from a cabin stove leans where the wind has thinned. A worn jacket on the rail keeps what the morning warmed. Even the closing dog-eared book rests in the cooling air. A tin cup left beside the step holds what the kettle gave. One stone path under quiet boots fades in the drifting haze. Stay in the breath I drag so low, deeper than I let show. Stay slow in the air I keep, where only late warmth flows. A small bell from the far hill turns into softer sound. One branch giving up its weight falls past the fading trail. Pine cones gather near the door, close to the resting axe. Even the leaning chimney pipe cools in the loosened sky. A scarf tied to the cabin neck your shoulders left. One half-burnt ribbon of dry pine turns where your steps had paused. Maybe the leaning trees held you a moment more. Maybe the slowing smoke carried your name too far. Stay in the breath I drag so low, deeper than I let show. Stay slow in the air I keep, where only thin light flows. Slow smoke through the pines. Brick along the alley wall holds warmth under a paling glow. A small lamp leaning by the door keeps where your hand had stayed. Cloth caught beneath the leaning chair moves in the loosened air. Even the half-closed iron gate rests in the thinning night. A worn step softened by the years keeps what the dusk let down. One wooden sign above the latch turns where your turn had paused. Wait, just a breath inside this lane, quieter than my name. Wait, deep in the hush I keep, where only soft glow stays. The radio from a far-off room fades into slower song. One shoe left near the broken step leans toward the hollow ground. Bricks along the lower seam hold what the day let pass. Even the rusted mailbox edge cools in the leaning shade. A faded mark along the wall keeps what your shoulder left. One slow and tender thread of light moves where your breath had been. Maybe the lamp had known how long I lingered there. Wait, just a breath inside this lane, quieter than my name. Wait, deep in the hush I keep, where only late glow stays. A lamp left at the alley. Rust along the rails grows warm under a clouded sun, a small coat folded on the bench keeps where your arms had been. Gravel near the wooden ties holds what the noon let down. Even the tin sign overhead turns in the loosened wind. A lunchbox tied with frayed string leans by the iron post. One paper schedule on the wall fades in the drifting heat. Oh, just a little more of me under your quiet breath. Oh, slow in the song I leave, where only late wind moves. A whistle far behind the curve folds into softer air. One paper cup beside the post leans without making sound. Cinders settle on the planks close to the cooling track. Even the station master's bell rests in the leaving glow. A cap forgotten on a rail keeps what the goodbye left. One shoelace caught against the seam moves where your weight had been. Maybe the parting bell spoke for me one more time. Maybe the rails kept warm longer than I had thought. Hold just a little more of me under your quiet breath. Hold slow in the song I leave, where only thin light moves. Half a step behind the train. Iron bolts along the rail stay cool under a graying noon. A faded scarf tied to the truss holds where the wind had passed. Mud beneath the wooden planks keeps what the river wore. Even the rusted handrail leans in the cooling spray. Lean into the hush I carry through, quieter than the truth. Lean slow in the breath I keep, where only soft tide moves. A barge folds shadow under the span, then drifts turns in the leaving air. Nothing has called me back, nothing is breaking through. Only the patient bridge holds where your way had paused. Maybe the bending steel learned how to wait for you. Lean into the hush I carry through, quieter than the truth. Lean slow in the breath I keep, where the iron bridge bends. Linen by the quiet lane sways slow under a paling glow. A long thread caught against the sill holds where your hand had stayed. Dust along the worn door frame keeps what the noon let fall. Even the unlatched garden gate leans in the loosened air. A pail half full beside the step cools in the leaning shade. One apron loose against the rail moves where your breath had been. Stay in the long slow note I drag, deeper than I can pull. Stay soft in the bend I keep, where only thin beside the eaves, then leaves the silence wide. One folded letter on the ledge turns in the cooling pane. Threads along the curtain edge hold what the morning gave. Even the rusted laundry pin rests in the drifting light. A ribbon worn against the post keeps what your fingers wore. One slow and bending strand of grass moves where your turn had paused. Maybe the leaning cloth carried your name too long. Maybe the trembling thread held you a breath too soft. Stay in the long slow note I drag, deeper than I can pull. Stay soft in the bend I keep, where only late air rolls. curtain by the quiet lane. Wood along the pond bench cools under a paling sky. A small ribbon caught against the slat holds where your hand had stayed. Reeds along the soft brown edge keep what the noon let down. Even the tilted fishing pole leans in the loosened air. A folded paper near the foot moves in the cooling breath. One stone path winding past the rail fades in the drifting hush. Stay in the quiet I keep below, deeper than I let show. Stay slow in the breath I hold, where only thin pond glows. A frog turns once beneath the lily, then leaves the silence wide. One cloud unties its slow gray edge into the cooling glass. Petals drift along the rim close to the resting oar. Even the leaning willow branch rests in the fading light. A worn cloth tied along the post keeps what your weight had left. One slow and silver running ring moves where your turn had paused. Maybe the leaning reeds carried your name too far. Stay in the quiet I keep below, deeper than I let show. Stay slow in the breath I hold, where only late pond glows. A bench by the quiet pond. Paper size of the lantern glow under a quieting dusk. A small flame leaning toward the dark keeps where your breath had warmed. Ripples along the cool black surface hold what the day let go. Even the tilted floating stick turns in the loosened tide. A reed bent low against the rim holds what the wind had passed. One careful candle inside the shade moves where your touch had been. Drift into the slow I carry low, deeper than I can show. Drift soft in the dark I hold, beside the shore, then leaves the water wide. One moth circling the leaning glow turns in the drifting hush, threads along the worn paper edge hold what the heat had pressed. Even the shadow on the shore cools in the leaning night. A faded mark along the base keeps what your hand had drawn. One slow and turning paper rim moves where your gaze had paused. Maybe the floating flame carried your name too far. Drift into the slow I carry low, deeper than I can show. Drift soft in the dark I hold, where only lake glow flows. A lantern on still water. Iron bolts along the rail stay cool under a graying noon. A faded scarf tied to the truss holds where the wind had passed. Mud beneath the wooden planks keeps what the river wore. Even the rusted handrail leans in the cooling spray. Lean into the hush I carry through, quieter than the truth. Lean slow in the breath I keep, where only soft tide moves. A barge folds shadow under the span, then drifts beyond the bend. One cloth caught on a metal seam turns in the leaving air. Nothing has called me back, nothing is breaking through. Only the patient bridge holds where your weight had paused. Maybe the bending steel learned how to wait for you. Lean into the hush I carry through, quieter than the truth. Lean slow in the breath I keep, where only thin tide moves. bridge bends. Stones along the mill path cool under a graying noon. A small wheel turning slow with weight keeps where the river bent. Flower dust along the wooden beam holds what the hours wore. Even the tilted grinding stone rests in the cooling shade. A sack tied loose against the post leans where the floor had worn. One quiet apron on the rail moves in the loosened air. Lean into the slow I drag below, deeper than I can show. Lean, soft in the breath I hold, where only mill light flows. A cart left empty by the door fades into softer dust. One rope strung between the eaves turns in the drifting hush. Grain along the threshing board keeps what your hands had passed. Even the shuttered upper hatch cools in the leaning beam. A worn tin scoop against the wall holds what your reach had left. One slow and turning paddle blade moves where your steps had paused. Maybe the patient wheel carried your name too long. Lean into the slow I drag below, deeper than I can show. Lean, soft in the breath I hold, where only late light flows. A path beside the old mill. Paper folded in the worn drawer rests under a quieting room. A thin crease softened by the years keeps where your hand had pressed. Ink along the careful line holds what the morning said. Even the loosened ribbon edge leans in the cooling shelf. A small dried petal near the fold moves in the drifting hush. One wooden handle on the pull turns where your reach left dry beside the page fades into softer ink. One quiet date along the corner turns in the loosened light. Threads along the binding seam hold what the touch had worn. Even the half-erased thin line rests in the leaning shade. A faded mark along the edge keeps what your eyes had drawn. One slow and folded paper crease moves where your breath had paused. Maybe the patient ink carried your name too long. Hold into the soft I keep below, deeper than I let show. Hold slow in the page I fold, where only late paper glows. A letter folded in the drawer. Iron sides of the old stove cool under a quieting room. A thin trace of the morning fire keeps where your hands had warmed. Ash along the worn iron rim holds what the heat let go. Even the leaning kettle spout rests in the cooling air. A wooden ladle near the wall moves in the drifting hush. One cotton cloth across the seam turns where your reach had paused. Linger in the warmth I drag below, deeper than I can show. Linger slow in the air I hold, where only soft ash glows. Pot left empty by the burner fades into softer dust. One match curled near the metal edge turns in the loosened gray. Suit along the inner door holds what the flame had pressed. Even the half-closed iron grate cools in the leaning shade. A faded mark along the side keeps what your touch had left. One slow and tender ember thread moves where your breath had been. Maybe the patient heat carried read your name too long. Linger in the warmth I drag below, deeper than I can show. Linger slow in the air I hold, where only late ash glows. A stove in the empty kitchen. Soil along the slope grows cool under a paling sky. A small worn footprint near the path keeps where your weight had stayed. Grass along the bending ridge holds what the day let down. Even the loosened wooden stake leans in the cooling breath. A dry vine wrapping near the stone moves in the drifting hush. One tilted marker on the rise turns where your turn had paused. Stay into the slow I keep below, deeper than I can show. Stay soft in the air I hold, where only late hill glows. Birdful shadow near the ridge, then leaves the silence wide. One paper kite caught on a branch turns in the loosened gray. Pebbles gather near the slope, hold what your steps had passed. Even the leaning fencing post rests in the cooling shade. A faded ribbon on the stake keeps what the wind had left. One slow and tender bending stem moves where your breath had been. Maybe the patient hill carried your name too far. Stay into the slow I keep below, deeper than I can show. Stay soft in the air I hold, where only thin hill glows. Quiet hill at dusk. Earth along the field grows still under a paling glow. A small dry stalk against the road keeps where your steps had stayed. Husks along the worn brown ridge hold what the season gave. Even the leaning wooden rake rests in the cooling air. Stay into the slow I drag below, deeper than I can show. Stay soft in the breath I hold, where only last light glows. A swallow folds against the sky, then leaves the silence wide. One cloth caught on a fencing nail turns in the loosened gray. A faded mark along the post keeps what your hand had left. One slow and bending strand of straw moves where your breath had been. Maybe the patient earth carried your name too long. Stay into the slow I drag below, deeper than I can show. Stay soft in the breath I hold, where only late field glows. Last light on the field. Cold stones along the bank stay still under a paling sky. One ribbon caught on a low reed keeps what the morning held. A boat half tied to the wooden post leans where your hands had been. Even the tired water turns slow through the bending grass. Stay in the breath I'm holding low, deeper than I can show. Stay slow in the air I keep, where only soft light flows. fingers across the planks, close to the cooling tide. Nothing is asking how, nothing is letting go. Only the patient stream turns where you used to stand. Maybe the moving water knew longer than I had thought. Stay in the breath I'm holding low, deeper than I can show. Stay slow in the air I keep, where only late light flows. Slow hands at the riverside. Pines along the slope hold still under graying noon. Thin smoke from a cabin stove leans where the wind has thinned. A worn jacket on the rail keeps what the morning warmed. Even the closing dog-eared book rests in the cooling air. A tin cup left beside the step holds what the kettle gave. One stone path under quiet boots fades in the drifting haze. Stay in the breath I drag so low, deeper than I let show. Stay slow in the air I keep, where only late warmth flows. A small bell from the far hill turns into softer sound. One branch giving up its weight falls past the fading trail. Pine cones gather near the door, close to the resting axe. Even the leaning chimney pipe cools in the loosened sky. A scarf tied to the cabin nail holds what your shoulders left. One half-burnt ribbon of dry pine turns where your steps had paused. Maybe the leaning trees held you a moment more. Maybe the slowing smoke carried your name too far. Stay in the breath I drag so low, deeper than I let show. Stay slow in the air I keep, where only thin light flows. Slow smoke through the pines. Brick along the alley wall holds warmth under a paling glow. A small lamp leaning by the door keeps where your hand had stayed. Cloth cot beneath the leaning chair moves in the loosened air. Even the half-closed iron gate rests in the thinning night. A worn step softened by the years keeps what the dusk let down. One wooden sign above the latch turns where your turn had paused. Wait, just a breath inside this lane, quieter than my name. Wait, deep in the hush I keep, where only soft glow stays. The radio from a far-off room fades into slower song. One shoe left near the broken step leans toward the hollow ground. Bricks along the lower seam hold what the day let pass. Even the rusted mailbox edge cools in the leaning shade. A faded mark along the wall keeps what your shoulder left. One slow and tender thread of light moves where your breath had been. Maybe the lamp had known how long I lingered there. Wait, just a breath inside this lane, quieter than my name. Wait, deep in the hush I keep, where only late glow stays. A lamp left at the alley. Rust along the rails grows warm under a clouded sun. A small coat folded on the bench keeps where your arms had been. Gravel near the wooden ties holds what the noon let down. Even the tin sign overhead turns in the loosened wind. A lunchbox tied with freight string leans by the iron post. One paper schedule on the wall fades in the drifting heat. Hold just a little more of me under your quiet breath. Hold slow in the song I leave, where only late wind moves. so far behind the curve folds into softer air. One paper cup beside the post leans without making sound. Cinders settle on the planks close to the cooling track. Even the station master's bell rests in the leaving glow. A cap forgotten on a rail keeps what the goodbye left. One shoelace caught against the seam moves where your weight had been. Maybe the parting bell spoke for me one more time. Maybe the rails kept warm longer than I had thought. Hold just a little more of me under your quiet breath. Hold slow in the song I leave, where only thin light moves. Half a step behind the train. Iron bolts along the rail stay cool under a graying noon. A faded scarf tied to the truss holds where the wind had passed. Mud beneath the wooden planks keeps what the river wore. Even the rusted handrail leans in the cooling spray. Lean into the hush I carry through, quieter than the truth. Lean slow in the breath I keep, where only soft tide moves. A barge folds shadow under the span, then drifts beyond the bend. One cloth caught on a metal seam turns in the leaving air. Nothing has called me back, nothing is breaking through. Only the patient bridge holds where your way had paused. Maybe the bending steel learned how to wait for you. Lean into the hush I carry through, quieter than the truth. Lean slow in the breath I keep, where only thin tide moves. Where the iron bridge bends. Linen by the quiet lane sway slow under a paling glow. A long thread caught against the sill holds where your hand had stayed. Dust along the worn door frame keeps what the noon let fall. Even the unlatched garden gate leans in the loosened air. A pail half full beside the step cools in the leaning shade. One apron loose against the rail moves where your breath had been. Stay in the long slow note I drag deeper than I can pull. Stay soft in the bend I keep where only thin air rolls. A sparrow lands beside the eaves, then leaves the silence wide. One folded letter on the ledge turns in the cooling pane. Threads along the curtain edge hold what the morning gave. Even the rusted laundry pin rests in the drifting light. A ribbon worn against the post keeps what your fingers wore. One slow and bending strand of grass moves where your turn had paused. Maybe the leaning cloth carried your name too long. Maybe the trembling thread held you a breath too soft. Stay in the long slow note I drag deeper than I can pull. Stay soft in the bend I keep where only late air rolls. A curtain by the quiet lane. Wood along the pond bench cools under a paling sky. A small ribbon caught against the slat holds where your hand had stayed. Reeds along the soft brown edge keep what the noon let down. Even the tilted fishing pole leans in the loosened air. A folded paper near the foot moves in the cooling breath. One stone path winding past the rail fades in the drifting hush. Stay in the quiet I keep below, deeper than I let show. Stay slow in the breath I hold where only thin palm glow. brook turns once beneath the lily, then leaves the silence wide. One cloud unties its slow gray edge into the cooling glass. Petals drift along the rim close to the resting oar. Even the leaning willow branch rests in the fading light. A worn cloth tied along the post keeps what your weight had left. One slow and silver running ring moves where your turn had paused. Maybe the leaning reeds carried your name too far. Stay in the quiet I keep below, deeper than I let show. Stay slow in the breath I hold, where only late pond glows. A bench by the quiet pond. Paper size of the lantern glow under a quieting dusk. A small flame leaning toward the dark keeps where your breath had warmed. Ripples along the cool black surface hold what the day let go. Even the tilted floating stick turns in the loosened tide. A reed bent low against the rim holds what the wind had passed. One careful candle inside the shade moves where your touch had been. Drift into the slow I carry low, deeper than I can show. Drift soft in the dark I hold, where only lantern flows. A ripple folds beside the shore, then leaves the water wide. One moth circling the leaning glow turns in the drifting hush. Threads along the worn paper edge hold what the heat had pressed. Even the shadow on the shore cools in the leaning night. A faded mark along the base keeps what your hand had drawn. One slow and turning paper rim moves where your gaze had paused. Maybe the floating flame carried your name too far. Drift into the slow I carry low, stay cool under a graying noon. A faded scarf tied to the truss holds where the wind had passed. Mud beneath the wooden planks keeps what the river wore. Even the rusted handrail leans in the cooling spray. Lean into the hush I carry through, quieter than the truth. Lean slow in the breath I keep, where only soft tide moves. A barge folds shadow under the span, then drifts beyond the bend. One cloth caught on a metal seam turns in the leaving air. Nothing has called me back, nothing is breaking through. Only the patient bridge holds where your weight had paused. Maybe the bending steel learned how to wait for you. Lean into the hush I carry through, quieter than the truth. Lean slow in the breath I keep, where only thin tide moves, where the iron bridge bends. Stones along the mill path cool under a graying noon. A small wheel turning slow with weight keeps where the river bent. Flower dust along the wooden beam holds what the hours wore. Even the tilted grinding stone rests in the cooling shade. A sack tied loose against the post leans where the floor had worn. One quiet apron on the rail moves in the loosened air. Lean into the slow I drag below, deeper than I can show. Lean soft in the breath I hold, where only mill light flows. A cart left empty by the door fades into softer dust. One rope strung between the eaves turns in the drifting hush. Grain along the threshing board keeps what your hands had passed. Even the shuttered upper hatch cools in the leaning beam. A worn tin scoop against the wall holds what your reach had left. One slow and turning paddle blade moves where your steps had paused. Maybe the patient wheel carried your name too long. Lean into the slow I drag below, deeper than I can show. Lean, soft in the breath I hold, where only late light flows. A path beside the old mill. Paper folded in the worn drawer rests under a quieting room. A thin crease softened by the years keeps where your hand had pressed. Ink along the careful line holds what the morning said. Even the loosened ribbon edge leans in the cooling shelf. A small dried petal near the fold moves in the drifting hush. One wooden handle on the pull turns where your reach had been. Hold into the soft I keep below, deeper than I let show. Hold slow in the page I fold, where only paper glows. Dry beside the page fades into softer ink. One quiet date along the corner turns in the loosened light. Threads along the binding seam hold what the touch had worn. Even the half-erased thin line rests in the leaning shade. A faded mark along the edge keeps what your eyes had drawn. One slow and folded paper crease moves where your breath had paused. Maybe the patient ink carried your name too long. Hold into the soft I keep below, deeper than I let show. Hold slow in the page I fold, where only late paper glows. downsides of the old stove cool under a quieting room. A thin trace of the morning fire keeps where your hands had warmed. Ash along the worn iron rim holds what the heat let go. Even the leaning kettle spout rests in the cooling air. A wooden ladle near the wall moves in the drifting hush. One cotton cloth across the seam turns where your reach had paused. Linger in the warmth I drag below, deeper than I can show. Linger slow in the air I hold, where only soft ash glows. A pot left empty by the burner fades into softer dust. One match curled near the metal edge turns in the loosened gray. Suit along the inner door holds what the flame had pressed. Even the half-closed iron grate cools in the leaning shade. A faded mark along the side keeps what your touch had left. One slow and tender ember thread moves where your breath had been. Maybe the patient heat carried your name too long. Linger in the warmth I drag below, deeper than I can show. Linger slow in the air I hold, where only late ash glows. A stove in the empty kitchen. Soil along the slope grows cool under a paling sky. A small worn footprint near the path keeps where your weight had stayed. Grass along the bending ridge holds what the day let down. Even the loosened wooden stake leans in the cooling breath. A dry vine wrapping near the stone moves in the drifting hush. One tilted marker on the rise turns where your turn had paused. Stay into the shadow near the ridge, then leaves the silence wide. One paper kite caught on a branch turns in the loosened gray. Pebbles gather near the slope, hold what your steps had passed. Even the leaning fencing post rests in the cooling shade. A faded ribbon on the stake keeps what the wind had left. One slow and tender bending stem moves where your breath had been. Maybe the patient hill carried your name too far. Stay into the slow I keep below, deeper than I can show. Stay soft in the air I hold, where only thin hill glows. Quiet hill at dusk. Earth along the field grows still under a paling glow. A small dry stalk against the road keeps where your steps had stayed. Husks along the worn brown ridge hold what the season gave. Even the leaning wooden rake rests in the cooling air. Stay slow I drag below, deeper than I can show. Stay soft in the breath I hold, where only last light glows. A swallow folds against the sky, then leaves the silence wide. One cloth caught on a fencing nail turns in the loosened gray. A faded mark along the post keeps what your hand had left. One slow and bending strand of straw moves where your breath had been. Maybe the patient earth carried your name too long. Stay deeper than I can show. Stay soft in the breath I hold, where only late field glow.